आज हम डीबीएमएस की इंटरव्यू सीरीज में एक नया लेक्चर लेके आए हैं। व्हाट टू डू यू अंडरस्टैंड बाय फंक्शनल डिपेंडेंसी एंड ट्रांजिटिव डिपेंडेंसी इन डीबीएमएस। क्या फंक्शनल डिपेंडेंसी होती है और क्या ट्रांजिटिव डिपेंडेंसी होती है डीबीएमएस के अंदर। तो आपको जब ये क्वेश्चन किया जाता है तो आपको स्पेसिफिक आंसर क्या देना है। फंक्शनल डिपेंडेंसी. A functional dependency is the constant that is used in the describing the relationship among the different attributes in a relation. Example: consider relation A1 having the attributes x and y. The functional dependency among these two attributes will be x tends to y. This implies that y is functionally dependent on x. एक होता है ट्रांजिटिव डिपेंडेंसी. A transitive dependency is a constant that can only occur a relation of three or more attributes. For example, consider a relation A1 having the attribute x, y and z. Now x tends to z is said to hold transitive dependencies only if the following functional dependency holds true: x tends to y, y does not tends to x, or y tends to greater than equal to Z. Then next question: what is the difference between 2 and 3 tier architecture? So 2 tier architecture and 3 tier architecture. In 2 tier architecture, this is the client server architectures. In 3 tier architecture, this architecture contains an extra layer between the client and the server. Another one is the client directly communicate with the database at the server side, and client communicate with the application on the server side that make the system more secure and accessible. This application thereafter communicate with the database systems. Mention the differences between unique key and primary key. Unique key and primary key. इसके अंदर क्या होता है? Unique key can have a null value. The primary key can not have a null value. Unique key: each table can have more than one unique key, or primary key: each table can have only one primary key. Then next, mention the difference between trigger and stored procedure. What is the trigger and what is the stored procedure? Trigger: a special kind of the stored procedure that is not called the directly by a user. In fact, the trigger is created and is programmed to file when a specific event outcomes. A group of SQL statements which can be reused again and again. These statements are created and stored in the database table. Through the trigger, a trigger cannot be called or executed directly by a user. Only when the corresponding event are fired, trigger are created. In stored procedure can execute stored procedure by using the execute command whatever we want. In trigger, you cannot schedule a trigger, and stored procedure, you can schedule a job to execute the stored procedure on a predefined time. दूसरा इसके अंदर होता है कैन नॉट डायरेक्टली कॉल अनदर ट्रिगर विद इन ए ट्रिगर. और स्टोर प्रोसीजर में क्या होता है? कॉल ए स्टोर प्रोसीजर फ्रॉम द अनदर स्टोर प्रोसीजर. तो ट्रिगर में पैरामीटर कैन नॉट बी पास्ड एज इनपुट और पैरामीटर कैन बी पास्ड in output. Cannot return value, can return 0 or n value. Transaction are not allowed within a trigger. You can use transaction within a stored procedure. Then next, explain the term and specialization and generalizations. Number 1, specialization. Specialization is the process of the defining a set of subclass of an entity type. Here, each subclass will contain all the attributes and relationship of the parent entity. From this, the subclass may contain additional attributes and relationship is specific to itself. Generalization. Generalization is a process of finding relation common attributes for a particular set of entity and finally defining a common superclass for them. Then, what do you understand by the data independence? When you say an application has data independence, it implies that the application is independent of the storage, structure, and data access strategy of the data. What are the different integrity rules present in the DBMS? The different integrity rules present in DBMS are as follows. Entity integrity. This rule states that the value of the primary key can never be null. So all the tuple in the column identified as the primary key should have a value. Referential integrity. This rule states that either the value of the foreign key is null or it should be in the primary key of any other relations. Another one is जब क्वेश्चन किया जाता है व्हाट आर द डिफरेंस बिटवीन नेटवर्क एंड हायरार्किकल डेटाबेस मॉड्यूल्स. Network database module and hierarchical database modules. Each parent node can have multiple children nodes and vice versa. A top-down structure where each parent node can have many child nodes, but a child node can have only a single parent node. Supports one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relations. Supports one-to-one and one-to-many relationship. Explain what a deadlock is and mention how it can be resolved. Deadlock is a situation which occurs when two transactions wait on a resource which is located on or other transaction holds. Deadlock can be prevented by making all the transactions acquire all the lock at the same instance of the time. So once the deadlock occurs, the only way to curve is to abort one of the transaction and remove the partially completed work. What are the difference between an exclusive lock and a shared lock? Exclusive lock and shared lock. An exclusive lock is a lock on the data item when a transaction is about to perform the written operation. A shared lock allows the more than one transaction to read the data items. What are the difference between drop, truncate and delete commands? Drop, truncate and delete commands. In drop, used to delete database table or view, and truncate used to delete all row from the table. Delete used to delete a row in the tables. Drop, data cannot be rollbacked, and truncate, data cannot be rollback. इसमें भी delete, data can be rollback. Drop, a DDL command. Truncate is the DDL command. Delete is the data manipulation language. And drop, slower than truncate. Truncate, faster than drop delete. And delete, slower than truncate. Then deletes the full structure of the table. Truncate, prevention the structure of the table. And delete the structure of the row from a table. Then mention the difference between union and union all. What is the union and union all? The combine the result of two or more select statement constants of the distinct value. Union all combines the result set of two or more select statement considering of duplicate value. Union, syntax union and syntax union all. How has low performance than the union all as duplicate row need to be removed, has better performance than union and duplicate row need not have to be removed. What do you understand by the clause in SQL? Clause in SQL is used to limit the result set by mentioning a condition to the query, so you can use a clause to filter row from the entire set of records. Example, where having clause. Mention the difference between having and where clause. In having clause and where clause. In having clause, used only with the select statement, where used in a group by clause. Used with the group by function in a query, applied to each row before they are a part of the group by functions in a query. And what are the advantages of DBMS over the traditional file-based systems? The database management system was deployed to handle the following difficulty to typical file processing system supported by the conventional operating system. One is the data redundancy and inconsistency. Two, difficulty in accessing data, data isolation, multiple files and formats, integrity problems, atomicity of the updates, concurrency access by the multiple user, and security problems. Then, what is the difference between primary key and unique constants? The primary key cannot have null value. The unique constants can have null value. There is only one primary key in a table, but there can be multiple unique constants. Then, what is database normalization? It is a process of analyzing the given relation schema based on the functions, dependencies, primary key to achieve the following desired property: minimizing redundancy, minimizing the insertion, deletion, and update anomalies. Relation schema that do not meet to property are decomposed into the smaller relation schema that could meet the described properties. Why is the use of the DBMS recommended? Explain by listing some of the major advantages. Some of the major advantages of the DBMS are also followed. One, controlled redundancy. DBMS supports a mechanism to control the redundancy of the data inside the database by integrating all the data into the single database, and as data is stored in only one place, the duplicate of the data does not happen. Data sharing. Data sharing of the data among multiple users simultaneously can also be done in DBMS, as the same database will be shared among all the users and by different application programs. Backup and recovery facility. DBMS minimizes the pain of the creating the backup of the data again and again by providing a feature of the backup recovery, which automatically creates the data backup and restore data whenever required. One, enforcement of the integrity constants and independent data. It's simply mean that you can change the structure of the data without affecting the structure of any of the application programs. What are the difference between DDL, DML, DCL and DQL? The following are details in 3. DDL, it stands for the data definition language SQL query, like create, alter, drop and rename come under this. DML, data manipulation language, stands for the data manipulation language. SQL query like select, insert, update come under this table. Data control language. SQL query like grant, revoke come under this. And what are the difference between having clause and where clause? Having is used to specify a condition for a group or as the aggregate function used in a select statement. The where clause select before grouping. The having clause select row after grouping. Unlike the having clause, the where clause cannot contain the aggregate function. See this for the example. See having versus where clause for more details. What is identity? Identity or auto number is a column that automatically generates numeric value. A start and increment value can be set, but most DBA level these at 1. A guide column also generates number. Value of this cannot be controlled. Identity guide column do not need to be indexed. What is a view in SQL? How to create a view? A view is a virtual table based on the result set of the SQL statement. We can create using create view syntax. Create view, view name, select, column name, from table name, where conditions. What are the use of view? क्या यूज होता है व्यू का? Number 1, view can represent a subset of the data contained in the table. Consequently, a view can limit the degree of explore of the underlying table to the lower word. A given user may have the permissions to query the view while the denied access to the rest of the base table. View can join the simplicity multiple table into a single virtual table. View can act aggregated table where the database engine aggregate data, sum, average, etc. present the calculated result as part of the data. View can hide the complexity of the data. View take very little space to store. Database contain only the definition of the view, not a copy of the old data which is presented. Depending on the SQL engine used, view can provide the extra security. So what is the trigger? A trigger is a code associated with the insert, update, delete operations. The code is executed automatically whatever the associated query is executed on a table. Trigger can be useful to maintain integrity in the database. What is a stored procedure? A stored procedure is like a function that contains a set of operations compiled together. It contains a set of operations that are commonly used in the application to do some common database task. What is the transaction? What are ACID properties? A database transaction is a set of database operations that must be treated as a whole, which means that either all the operations are executed or none of them. An example can be bank transaction from the one account to another account. Either both debit or credit operation must be executed or none of them. ACID atomicity, consistency, isolation and durability is set of the property that guarantee that database transactions are proceed reliably. What are the indexed? A database indexed is a data structure that improve the speed of the data retrieval operation on a database table and at the cost of the additional write and use of the more storage space to maintain the extra copy of the data. Data can be stored only in one order on a disk and support faster access according to the different value. Faster search like binary search different value is desired. For this purpose, indexes are created on table. These indexes need extra space on the disk, but they allow the faster search according to the different frequency search values. What is the purpose of normalization in DBMS? What is the purpose of normalization DBMS? Database normalization is the process of organizing the attribute of the database to reduce the eliminate data redundancy having the same data but at different places. Purpose of the normalization: it is used to remove duplicate data and database anomalies from the relational table. Normalization helps to reduce the redundancy and complexity by examining new data type used in the table. It is helpful to divide the larger database table into smaller table and link them using the relationship. And it's reduce this. Hello.
संजय जी बात कर रहे हैं?
हाँ.
संजय जी राहुल बात कर रहा हूँ, आपने ब्लाबला बुक की थी मेरी.
भाई साहब आपने कोई रिप्लाई नहीं दिया, मैंने तो वो कैंडिडेट ही आ गया.
कैंडिडेट आ गया मतलब?
वो दिल्ली पहुंच गया कैंडिडेट, क्योंकि मैंने कई बार आपको मैसेज किया, आपने कोई रिप्लाई नहीं दिया.
नहीं, आपका मेरे पास कोई मैसेज नहीं आया है.
आप देखिए, मैं इनबॉक्स में खोल के देखिए, आपके नंबर वहाँ रिफ्लेक्ट कर नहीं रहा था कॉल करने के लिए.
क्या नाम से था? नहीं, मेरे पास कुछ नहीं आया सर.
संजय के नाम से किया था मैंने.
चलिए कोई बात नहीं, आपका हो गया है ना?
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
चलिए.
It avoids the duplicate data or no repeating group into a table. It reduces the change for anomalies to occur in a database. What is the difference between a database schema and database state? The collection of information stored in a database at a particular moment in time is called database state, while the overall design of the database is called the database schema. Explain entity, entity type and entity set in DBMS. Entity is the object, place or thing which has its the independent extension in the real world and about which data can be stored in the database, for example any person, book, etc. Then entity type. Entity type is a collection of the entities that have the same attributes. For example, the student table contains row in which each row is an entity holding an attribute like name, age and ID. The student in the student आजा
हो गया, कभी दूसरे पे ना.
क्या हुई?
कभी
And the entity set is the collection of entity of the same type. For example, a collection of the employee of a firm. Then another one question is, what are the different level of abstraction in the DBMS? There are the different three levels of the abstraction in DBMS. First one is the inclusion, physical level, logical level and view levels. In physical level, this is the lowest level of the database abstraction, which states how the data is stored in the database tables. And logical level, this is the next level of the data abstraction, which states the type of data and relationship data is stored in the database. And view level, this is the highest level in the data abstraction, which shown states only a part of the database tables.